Church, and it's February, which means that a week from tomorrow is what day, guys? I hope you know that. This is your warning. If you don't know that, you have a week to prepare right now. Do something special. Sorry, just adjusting this real quick. Do something special for your wife, for your husband. Have a good time. In fact, we have an event planned for that week, which you can find on the QR code. Tim will talk a little bit more about that. But this is kind of the month of love, right? We kind of call February the month of love. And so we just finished our resolutions sermon series last week, and we're going to continue or start a new sermon series, and we're calling it Everybody Always. Everybody Always. And it's based off of a book by Bob Goff called Everybody Always. And it's about loving everybody always. He also has another book it's called Love Does, and it's a really good book. I encourage you guys to read those books. And so our sermon series this month is kind of based off of this study by Bob Goff. And if you have a Right Now Media account, you can actually watch these sessions on that, and there'll be a excellent addition to the sermon series that we're going through. But it's the month of love, and so I wanted to start with this question today. When we talk about love, and how does Jesus teach about love? Well, he teaches us to love people where they're at. Love people where they're at. And that's what we're going to talk about today. How do we do that? How do we love people where they're at? And this week, you ever have one of those weeks where it's just like, does it ever stop? Do the hits ever stop coming, you know? This last week was one of those weeks for us. It was last Sunday or Saturday. My wife's aunt passed away, and so we drove down on Tuesday to Tennessee, and we were able to spend some time with her family, and her dad was at home alone, so we were able to spend time. It was his sister that passed away. And when you think about love and loving other people, and we say loved ones, when you lose a loved one, it's a special kind of hurt when someone passes away that you love. And when we think about family, it's kind of easy to love our family. Sometimes it's hard. I know. Sometimes we have difficult, especially siblings. Like for some reason, even now I go home and I know, like, I'll push buttons on my siblings just to see if those buttons still work. You know, it's like we're old, but I want to see if this can still rile you up. You know, and we have a special bond with our siblings. And but for the most part, it's usually easy to love our family, especially our children. And so I got to spend some time with loved ones this last week, and we got to celebrate life and the life of Kirsten's aunt. And you start talking about, well, what happens, do you have your estates in order and all that stuff, and all those really hard conversations that you have to have as parents get older. And we had a couple of those conversations, and we realized that love is, when you talk about family, there's a special bond with family, and especially when my daughter, I can tell you, like Gwen is she's a goofball. If you get to know her, she's just a big ham, and her personality is just shining through these days. And so she made the 9-hour trip with us, obviously, and we only stopped once on the way down. That's how good she did. She was awesome. And I have a picture of her, I think, if you guys want to put that up. There she is. That's Gwen. So this is her stance that she loves in the car seat. She does the full splits, and then she's got Lion King playing on there. If you guys can throw it up on the side screens, maybe. But the full splits, Lion King, she's ready. She's in her zone. That's Gwen, and that's kind of just a summary of her personality right there. She's just great. And we got to spend time with family, and I'm putting her in gymnastics, by the way, as soon as I can. But we got to spend time with that family and get to grow those relationships. And then we drove home on Friday, the best day ever to drive home from Tennessee through an ice storm, and saw over 30 vehicles on the side of the road. And God kept us safe, though. It was we made it home safe on Friday. So it's just been one of those weeks, and now Gwen's sick, and so but God is good, and God has taught us through this whole week that there's a special bond between family and love. But then I came to this question as I was preparing for this sermon. And the question was, do I love other people the way I love my family? It's easy sometimes to love your daughter or your son, especially when they're as cute as Gwen is. But what do we do when we love people that aren't easy to love? What do we do when it comes to loving people that are difficult to love? People that aren't like us. People that don't believe the same things as us. People that maybe are even contrary to our beliefs. We would consider them enemies. How do we love those people? I think love is a defining characteristic of a Christian. It's something Jesus talks about all the time. And if I ever had to preach on just one subject over and over again, it would be that. It would be love. Jesus is love. And he wants us to love because as a Christ follower, we need to be like Christ. But how do we do that? It's a good thought, but how do we bridge that from that thought and that ideology to practicality? So how do we show love? 1 Thessalonians 5:15 says this, make sure you never pay back one wrong with another wrong. Instead, always try to be kind to each other and to everyone else. Colossians 3:12 says, as God's chosen people, holy and dearly beloved, clothe yourselves with compassion, kindness, humility, gentleness, and patience. Philippians 4:5 says, your kindness should be known to all. How do we show love? Love is kindness. How do we actively love someone? Are we kind? See, love in action is kindness. And Jesus teaches this story, and this is where we're going to base the sermon off of today. It's a story from Luke 10. And someone asked Jesus, goes up to him, and this is a lawyer. He's trying to, people just tried to corner Jesus. They tried to get him to say something to make him slip. And this is kind of how this guy was. He was like trying to corner Jesus to make him say something that might be contrary to their belief. And he said, or in the story goes in verse 25, and behold, a lawyer stood up to put him to the test, saying, teacher, what shall I do to inherit eternal life? He said to him, what is written in the law? How do you read it? So Jesus, he knows that this guy's a lawyer, so he says, hey, what do you think it is? And he answered, you should love the Lord your God with all your heart and all your soul and with all your strength and with all your mind, and your neighbor as yourself. And Jesus, he said to him, you have answered correctly. Do this, and you will live. But he, desiring to justify himself, said to Jesus, and who is my neighbor? And Jesus replied with a story like Jesus does. He says, a man's going down from Jerusalem to Jericho, and he fell among robbers, who stripped him and beat him and departed, leaving him half dead. Or mostly dead, if you're like fans of the Princess Bride, he's not all dead, he's mostly dead. This guy was mostly dead. Now by chance, a priest was going down that road, and when he saw him, he passed by on the other side. So likewise a Levite, when he came to the place and saw him, passed by on the other side. But a Samaritan, as he journeyed, came to where he was, and when he saw him, he had compassion. He went to him, bound up his wounds, pouring on oil and wine. Then he set him on his own animal and brought him to the inn and took care of him. The next day he took out 2 denarii and gave him to the innkeeper, saying, take care of him, and whatever more you spend, I will repay you when I come back. Which of these 3 do you think proved to be the neighbor to the man who fell among the robbers? And he said, the one who showed him mercy. Jesus said to him, you go and do likewise. That's a pretty convicting story. It's a story that maybe we've heard multiple times, the Good Samaritan. And in fact, it's so popular now, like if anyone does good, there's actually laws called Good Samaritan laws. I mean, it's used in our culture today because it's such a popular story of someone who helped someone even though they had nothing to gain from it. They were a Good Samaritan. And Jesus is teaching in this story. He teaches 3 possible attitudes that we can have towards people. And I want to talk about these real quick. The first attitude that we can have is we can keep our distance. And this is in verse 30. There's a man going down from Jerusalem to Jericho. The robbers attacked him, stripped him, and beat him up, leaving him half dead. So it happened that the priest was going down that road, but when he saw the man, he walked on by the other side. He kept his distance. And I feel like sometimes in life, we have all these people around us that think like us, that act like us. We have this fear of our social groups and our culture that we live in, and we have these little bubbles, and we don't really venture outside those bubbles, because if we venture outside those bubbles, we might actually see someone that's hurting. And so we have these safety bubbles, kind of. These spheres of influence that we live in. We keep our distance from those who are hurting. This is what this guy did. He said when he saw the hurt, he wanted nothing to do with it. He saw him. He saw the guy, and not only did he want nothing to do with it, he went out of his way to go across on the other side of the road. I'm going to walk away from this person as far as I can. I want absolutely nothing to do with it. We can keep our distance. That's the first attitude. Second attitude that we see is we can be curious but uncaring. We can be curious but uncaring. Luke 10:32, in the same way, a Levite also came there, went over and looked at the man, but then walked on by the other side. You know what this is right here? This is like the first recorded story of rubbernecking. He's going down the road and he's like, what is that? What's going on? Looking, he's checking it out, and that just annoys me to death when you're in traffic, and the only reason it's slowed down is because everyone wants to check out the accident, and this guy's like rubbernecking, and he wants to know what's going on. He wants the juicy details, but he doesn't want to get involved. He wants all the story. He's like, oh, man, that's crazy. That's happening. He likes the gossip. He likes to know the stories, but he's not going to get involved at all. We can be curious but uncaring. Then the last attitude we see is we can show kindness, like the Samaritan did. But a Samaritan who's traveling by that way came upon the man, and when he saw him, his heart was filled with pity. His heart was filled with pity. Matthew 7:12 says this, says, always treat others as you would like them to treat you. And as we show kindness, we are showing love. Kindness is the active verb of love, the active action. Galatians 6:7 says this, the person who plants selfishness, ignoring the needs of others, harvests a crop of weeds. All he'll have to show for his life is weeds. So as we talk about these three different attitudes, and I know we can all kind of find ourselves in these different attitudes depending on kind of the day almost. If it's one of those days, we're just not today. Nope, I see that, but it's a busy day. I'm not in the mood. I'm just not really feeling up to it. And we can find ourselves being guilty of committing some of these attitudes of keeping my distance. Oh, I don't want to go close to that side of town because I know the hurt that's there. Or I can be curious but uncaring where I'll know about it. And I want to get I just want the story. Hey, just tell me what's going on, but I'm not going to help at all. And then we can have days where we are kind, where we show love. And it's day by day. We struggle with that kind of which attitude are we going to have today. See, part of finding our joy in life is found in helping other people find their joy. Part of finding our joy and our purpose and our fulfillment in life, as people, God created us to be communal beings. So part of that joy, if you're not helping other people find their joy, you're always going to be missing something. You're going to be missing some kind of fulfillment in life if you're living life just for you. Like that first guy who wanted nothing to do with it. He's like, hey, I got my own problems. I got my own issues to deal with. And this was a priest. And it's kind of interesting Jesus uses these people. The priest is the guy that ignored, kept his distance. I want nothing to do with that. The guy who was supposed to show and share the love of Christ, the love of God, supposed to care for other people, and he didn't. He wanted nothing to do with it. The Levite, who was also the Levite, the clan of Levi was the clan of where the priest would come from. So he knew all about the law too. He would have known that he was obligated to help this person, but he passed by too. And it was the Samaritan, was the third guy that decided to show kindness, decided that he would help this other person find the joy in their life. See, Proverbs 11:17 says this. It says, your own soul is nourished when you are kind. Your own soul is nourished when we are kind. And we talked about that a couple weeks ago, that when we give of ourselves, it nourishes us. It fulfills us. That's how God created us. So how do we get there? That's what we want to talk about this morning. How can I love people where they're at? How do I deal with these different attitudes that I can have? And how do I end up loving people where they're at? What are some steps? Well, the first step we need to do is we need to see the needs of people around us. We need to have eyes open to see the needs of people around us. When he saw the man's condition, his heart went out to him. That's what verse 33 says. When he saw him, he had pity. When he saw him, he had compassion. His heart went out to him. His first response when he saw this man in trouble, you know what his first response was? The Samaritan, when he saw this guy, he was like, man, I wonder what that guy did to deserve that. I wonder what the choices are that guy made, the bad choices that ended him up in that situation. That guy should have chose better friends. All the excuses was that his first thought? No, that's not what he thought. His first thought was compassion. His first thought when he saw hurting people was love, pity, compassion. His heart was moved. He didn't automatically go to this, well, he probably deserved it. Well, he probably just got mixed up in a bad crew and a bad deal, and, it's rough. He probably deserved it. That wasn't what he thought. Philippians 4:8 says this, finally, brothers, whatever is true, whatever is honorable, whatever is just, whatever is pure, whatever is lovely, whatever is commendable, whatever is excellent, or if there's any excellence, if there's anything worthy of praise, think about these things. That verse is telling us that if you have to look really hard, if there's anything excellent, think on the good in other people. Look for the good. It's so easy to find faults in other people. I have a lot. You don't have to look very far to find them. We all have faults. And it's so easy for us when we see someone who's hurting to instantly go to that place where instead of our hearts being moved, we come up with, well, that's why they deserve that. Well, they should have done this differently. Well, I don't know if I help them, they're probably just going to go out and buy more booze. Whatever it is, I don't know what our thought process is as soon as we see that person. But Philippians says, hey, think good about people. Find the good in somebody else. Look for the excellence. You might have to look really deep, but look for it. You know what that involves? In order to find that, it involves a relationship. It involves genuinely caring enough about someone to try to get to know them. We've all heard the story of the Wizard of Oz, right? The Wizard of Oz, who's the big baddie in the Wizard of Oz? Oh, come on. Wicked Witch, right? The Wicked Witch of the West, right? What's the Wicked Witch that got crushed by the house? I don't remember that one. But of the East, okay. So the Wicked Witch of the West is the one that's the big baddie in the Wizard of Oz. And you know the story, Dorothy and Toto, they get swept up in a tornado, lands in Oz and crushes the witch, and then they follow the Yellow Brick Road. They find people around the lion, the Cowardly Lion, the Tin Man, the Scarecrow, and she kind of gets this gathering, and they walk to try to find the wizard who can help them, the Wizard of Oz. And along the way, they're constantly inundated by this evil, wicked witch who's trying to derail their operation. Not only the Wicked Witch, though. She wasn't that scary. What was the scary part is her monkeys. Her flying monkeys. Like, the first time I watched that movie, I don't think I finished it because it was, and I know, like, there's people out here that identify with that. Those things were scary. And as a kid, that's not a kid movie. Those flying monkeys were the real deal. And so the Wicked Witch is the baddie in this show, and she's one-dimensional. We don't really know a lot about the Wicked Witch. She's only one-dimensional. We just know she's bad. We just know she's evil. Well, not too long ago, I think in like 2003, not too long ago, it's almost 20 years. I sound like some of you, but this Broadway show came out called Wicked, and it was about the Wicked Witch of the West. It was about this person, and her name was Elphaba. And so this whole story, I never went to watch it, but my friends were like in junior high and high school, they were obsessed with it. Went to L.A. and watched it on Broadway and everything. And this person named Elphaba was the Wicked Witch, and it shows kind of her character development of how the Wicked Witch became the Wicked Witch. What happened in her life? What's the backstory? Is there more than just the fact that she was evil? Is there more to that? And it develops the story, and we get to see that there were certain things and issues and characteristics and things that happened in her life, the way she was treated, the things that happened that changed her, that made her who she was. But it takes time. See, what we like to do is we like to categorize people as good or bad without taking the time to get to know them. The time to get to know why are they like this way. And we can find ourselves, and I find myself saying this too, it's like, well, they're just toxic. That's just a toxic person. They're just angry. That's just an angry person. Or they're just not a nice person. They're grumpy, they're negative. That's just the way they are. And we like to categorize people because it's a lot easier than getting to know them. It's a lot easier than getting to know their story and why they made that decision or why they are the way they are. Why are they hurting? Because this is a truth that my grandpa taught me, and I'm sure you've heard it before, but we need to understand that hurting people hurt people. Hurting people hurt people. And I know that's not an excuse for us to be verbally or physically abused. I'm not saying that. It's not an excuse for people to do wrong things. But it helps us to understand that when someone is hurting, they're going to hurt people. So we need to have eyes to see past that. Eyes to see someone for who they are. Eyes to see past what the surface level of what we're seeing and saying, where's the hurt coming from? What's the real issue here? How can I be a part of that? Give me those eyes to see. We have to pray and ask God to give us those eyes daily. Because loving people is showing kindness to those who are not like us. Loving people, loving your neighbor means showing kindness to someone who is complete opposite of you. This is exactly what Jesus did. Jesus was incredibly kind and loving to the social outcasts. They were socially, racially, economically, morally, and politically opposite of Jesus. But he found himself constantly in their presence. In fact, he was accused for it and condemned for it because he had friends who were prostitutes, friends who were tax collectors, friends who were sinners and publicans, and all the bad words that the religious people would condemn these people for. That's who Jesus was friends with. That's who Jesus showed kindness to. He got to know them. He got to know their story. He didn't just look at them and write them off. He saw who they were. Because in Luke 10:33, when he saw him, his heart was filled with compassion. So when we see someone who's hurting, it's a good litmus test. Do we have compassion? Is that our first response? And we're conditioned, I think, in our society to think of other reasons to say, well, that person deserved what they got, or if they only got a job, whatever, fill in the blank. But is our first thought when we see someone who is hurting, is it compassion, empathy, sympathy? So we need to stop asking what's wrong with them. We need to start asking what happened to them. What happened to them? Get to know their story. Galatians 6:2 says, share each other's troubles and problems, and in this way obey the law of Christ. See, this is what kindness does. This is what love does. Kindness enters into the messy and the uncomfortable situation. It goes in there and it says, hey, I'm willing to get messy with you. The Samaritan, he was willing to get, and I'm sure this guy was bloody, he was dirty, he's beaten. He's willing to get in there, into the ditch and get messy, where that person's problem now became his problem. He was willing to be uncomfortable to help someone, willing to take on their pain. So how can we see people in their pain? How do we do that? How do we have eyes like that? We need to ask God. We need to pray. That's something that I started doing a while ago, because if you know me, sometimes I can be more analytical than compassionate. I can think more of kind of like organizational rather than personal. And in doing that, you can miss people and you can miss their hurt. You can miss being sympathetic towards them. And so I had to ask God. I said, God, give me eyes to see people, eyes of compassion. There's a verse of Jesus when he looks over the crowd of people and he sees them, his heart was moved because he had compassion on them, because they're like a people with sheep with no shepherd. So I started asking God, give me eyes to see people like you see them. And if you're kind of getting to this attitude where you can kind of keep your distance, you can just keep going and you kind of miss people because, hey, I got my own things to worry about. I got my own life. I got my own family. I got my own issues. And you can miss people. Ask God. He'll give it to you. I promise you. You ask God to give you eyes of compassion, eyes to see like Jesus sees. He'll give them to you. He'll let you see the hurt that's around you. So we need to see the hurt. Number 2, if we want to reach these people where they're at, if we want to show love where they're at, don't pass up on opportunities to help. Don't pass up on opportunities to help. He went to him and bandaged his wounds, pouring oil and wine. That's what verse 34 says. See, and this is kind of what we usually do is we have a desire to help people, but we have a desire to help people when it fits our schedule. Kind of like when it's convenient for me. Right now, it's convenient because, I don't have a whole lot going on, or I'm going to plan from Saturday from 10 a.m. to 12 p.m. or whatever, or I'm going to plan from like this little slot of time to help somebody. That's what I'm going to do. And in doing so, we miss the opportunities that God brings to our across our plate every single day. We can't just schedule our time to be helpful. Galatians 6:10 says, whenever we have the opportunity to help anybody, we should do it. But we should give special attention to those who are in the family of believers. James says it this way in James 2:15. If a brother or sister is poorly clothed and lacking in daily food, and one of you says to them, go in peace, be warmed and filled, without giving them the things they need for their body, what good is that? James actually goes on to say, faith without works is dead. That if you say you believe in Christ, but you have no works, no love, no kindness, you see someone who's hurting and you just say, hey, have a nice day. I have the power to help you, but I'm not gonna. It's dead. Don't miss those opportunities that God brings across our plate every single day to help. Never walk away from someone who deserves your help. Your hand is God's hand for that person. Never tell your neighbors to wait until tomorrow if you can help them now. That's what Proverbs 3:27 through 28 says. And we've all experienced this to some different degree. We've all experienced where someone brought, there's an opportunity presented to us, an opportunity presented itself to us. I can talk, and we can ignore it. We can look past it, or we say, "I'm just too busy. I can't handle this right now." Don't pass up opportunities to help people. And I got to experience this like 2 weeks ago, and it was a really small illustration here. But like I was snow blowing my driveway, which is oddly, like, I really love snow blowing for some reason. My driveway, don't come ask me to do yours. I for some reason, it's just really fun. I like it. I kind of like mowing the lawn too. So I'm just going. I'm going down the sidewalk there, and it's a beautiful day. The sun was out, and I'm just kind of enjoying. Got nothing to do. It's Saturday afternoon or Sunday afternoon, and so I go to my neighbors, and my neighbor's like in her late 80s, maybe early 90s, and she's her husband is bedridden. And so I was like, you know what? I'm just going to go do their driveway real quick. And so I go up and do their driveway right next to us. And then as soon as I finish doing their driveway, like the little neighbor kid comes with this shovel because she had hired him to like shovel the driveway. And I felt bad. I just took this kid's job away from him. But I tried to help her out. And then she calls me later on in the day. And she says, hey, Derek, thanks for helping me with the driveway. I really appreciate it. And I was like, hey, anytime, if you need any help, let me know. And so she's like, okay, yeah, I'll let you know. And you know how it is. You offer that to people, right? If you need any help, let me know. Well, then like an hour later, maybe 30 minutes later, I get a call from her. And she says, hey, when you said if you need any help, let me know? And I was like, oh, yeah, I did say that. She was like, hey, could you take my garbage out for me? And I had this moment where I was just like, really? Like, I just gave you that like offer. It's like, hey, yeah, if you need anything, let me know. And then I had like this coming to Jesus moment where it was like, how would you want to be treated? If you were 85 years old, 90 years old, your spouse, your wife was bedridden, and you have a steep, snowy driveway that you want to roll your garbage down, and how would you want to be treated? And that got me really convicted right then, and I said, yeah, absolutely. Absolutely I'll help. Absolutely I'll take your garbage out. It takes 2 minutes. And it's not a big inconvenience for me, but I had to be willing, and God convicted me of that, to be willing to be inconvenienced in just a small scenario. And then later on that week, another scenario presented itself, and I only had like an hour time gap where I could go help this person and that really needed some help. And that same conviction is like, hey, what would you want someone to do for you? Would you want them to help you? I think as we're reaching people, as we're loving people where they're at, we have to be willing to be interrupted in our lives. We have to be interruptable. We have to be, and honestly, we can start expecting it. Because if you expect it, it's not as bad. Hey, I'm going to expect that today I might be interrupted. I might be interrupted, and that's okay. Because I want to expect that. Because when I'm interrupted, that's an opportunity for me to help somebody. It's an opportunity for me to give of myself. If we want to meet people where they're at, we're going to have to be interruptible. So I want us to reflect this week, maybe the last 2 weeks. Was there a time where you were interruptible? Where you allowed yourself to be interrupted to help someone else? And I think like in our modern day culture, it's just go, go, go. It's, hey, we got the kids, we got work, we got all this stuff, and we just jam our life so full that we don't make room for interruptions. And in fact, interruptions become super annoying. And I hate interruptions because they just ruin my whole day. We need to be able to be interruptible if we want to love people where they're at. So we got to be able to see them. We got to take every opportunity that comes across our plate. And then thirdly, if we want to love people where they're at, we got to do whatever it takes. Do whatever it takes. Luke 10:34-5. Then he put the man on his own donkey, took him into an inn where he took care of him. The next day he gave the innkeeper some silver and told him to take care of that man. He said, if his bill runs higher than that, I'll pay the difference next time I'm here. That's pretty powerful love. He took the stranger and he said, I'm going to pay for him. And if he orders some room service, if he runs the bill up, I'm going to take care of that too. I got it. What is he teaching us here? He's saying, don't be stingy with your kindness. Don't be stingy with your kindness. Do whatever it takes. A lot of times we can just do the bare minimum just to appease our conscience. I'm going to do the bare minimum because I know, man, I feel the pull in my heart. I have compassion. I see that person's hurt, but I'm going to do the bare minimum just so that I don't think about it when I go to sleep tonight. I'm going to do just enough to get by. Jesus is saying this person that was a neighbor, this person that loved, this Samaritan, he went above and beyond. He lavished this guy with kindness. He took care of him. He wasn't stingy. Don't be stingy with your kindness. Proverbs 19:17 says this. It says, being kind to the people in need is like lending to the Lord. He will repay you for the kindness you have shown. That's what it's like. It's like doing it unto Jesus. We talked about that a couple weeks ago. But when we help people, and Jesus says this, when you help the least of these people, the people that are in the gutter, the people that are hurting, when you help those people, you've done it unto me. And just imagine that. If we put Jesus in the gutter, and we knew that was Jesus, would we walk by, not do anything? Would we keep our distance? Would we do the bare minimum? I think it would really change the way we look at other people. Because that's what Jesus says. He says, when you do it to the least of these people, when you help hurting people, you've done it unto me. That's how we love people where they're at. We don't expect them to be anything else. We don't expect them to do anything. We don't expect them to earn this love. It's love that is given freely, exactly where they're at. Luke 10:36, Jesus closes that whole thing, and he asks the question to this lawyer, which one of these three people was the true neighbor to the one attacked? The man said, the one who showed him kindness. Jesus replied, you're right. Now you go and do the same. Jesus wants us to go and do the same, to show kindness to those who are needing it, to open our eyes. So as we close, I want to ask these couple questions. Do you love people where they're at? Do you see their hurt? Do you do whatever it takes? Are you kind? When people think of your name, do they say that person's kind? Are you kind? That's loving like Jesus wants us to love. That's loving your neighbor. That's loving where they're at. And I get it. Sometimes we fail. Sometimes we're unkind. Sometimes we have a bad day or a bad week. Sometimes it feels like we just can't get one foot in front of the other. We're just kind of surviving. We're just treading water, trying not to drown. And I'm not perfect. I've failed plenty of times in this area. But that doesn't mean we give up. It doesn't mean we stop trying. Because to live like this, to have a lifestyle where we are loving our neighbors, where we're showing kindness, to develop that lifestyle is a decision every morning. It's a decision every day. Today I'm going to love my neighbor. Today I'm going to keep my eyes open. I'm going to be on the lookout for people who are hurting. And I'm going to welcome the interruption. Not only welcome it, I'm going to expect an interruption today. I'm going to expect that God's going to bring an interruption. I'm going to see it, and I'm going to be expecting it so that when it comes, I can help. So that when it comes, I can be available. And it might be something small like taking out your neighbor's garbage. It might be something bigger. But be ready for those interruptions. Be the hands and feet. Be kind. Let's be a church who's kind. Let's be a church who decides to love people where they're at with kindness, not expecting anything in return, not expecting them to believe like us, to think like us. But let's just be kind. Let's be a church that loves our neighbor and loves people where they're at. Let's have a word of prayer and we'll close. God, thank you for giving us this story. Thank you for teaching us how to love people. God, I pray that you will give us eyes to see the hurt today when we go home, on our way home. I pray that you will convict us in our hearts to help, be a church with open hands, ready to help our community, help those around us, and be the love of Jesus to these people who don't know you. We love you, God, and we pray these things in your name. Amen.